Nintendo Classic Mini was 2016's hot Christmas item for gamers. This thing was sold out everywhere, and when people could get their hands on one, it was usually just so they could sell it on eBay for up to 3 times the original price. Funny thing, Nintendo was never very popular in my country, so it was relatively easy to find it in stores here. In fact, most listings on British eBay are actually selling the Portuguese stock. Conversely, Sega was hugely popular in my country, with the Master System, Mega Drive, Saturn and Dreamcast outselling their Nintendo counterparts. Hell, the Saturn actually sold on par with the original PlayStation up until late 97 or early 98 here, meaning I have a bit of an easier time finding Saturn titles than I do Super Nintendo or even N64 games. This is why I haven't done any Nintendo reviews yet. It's not because I have something against Nintendo, it's just that Nintendo gear is pretty expensive here. And for the NES, you have an extra layer of complexity because you had 2 NES systems in Europe, NES-A by Mattel and NES-B by Nintendo, and the games only ran on one or the other, never on both. My childhood was mostly spent playing NES games though, and that's because my parents got me a Famiclone with 42 games in its memory, some of which are in the Nintendo Classic Mini. They're even about the same size, except this thing is nearly 30 years old and it still works. I currently own the console, 1 extra controller, and I only had to pay the store price. That's more than I can say for many gamers. And I gotta say, I love the box design. It's so retro. It completely stands out from any shelf, especially when compared to the sea of blandness that is today's packaging in modern consoles. The console comes with 30 pre-installed games and features HDMI output. And look at how small this thing is! It's tiny! It's the size of a PS4 controller! I should point out, there's no cartridge slot, so this little flap doesn't open. The controllers are the same size as the original NES console, but they are not compatible with the original hardware. The NES Mini is powered through a USB cable, meaning you either have to have it connected to your PC, or you could buy one of these separately. The games are outputted in sharp HDMI, and you have 3 display options, though honestly, I just go with pixel perfect. The game selection is generally pretty good, much better than those Sega Genesis or Mega Drive clone systems if you ask me, and that's because the list isn't limited to just Nintendo titles. I mean, let's be honest here. Nintendo and Sega had great first-party games, but no lineup is complete without some quality third-party titles, and the Nintendo Classic Mini really delivers here. You got games from Konami, Capcom, Squaresoft, Tecmo, Taito, and many others. So this means you can play classic titles like Super Mario, run-and-gun games like Super C, beat-em-ups like Double Dragon, and even a couple of RPGs like Final Fantasy and Star Tropics. With that said, some of the choices left me scratching my head, like, why are we getting Super C instead of the original Contra? Don't get me wrong, I love both games, but why specifically the sequel? And why are we European gamers getting Tecmo Super Bowl? Wouldn't Nintendo Cup make more sense? And for that matter, why are we getting Castlevania 2 instead of the much superior Castlevania 3? Yeah, I could probably nitpick the selection to death, but I guess when you have to boil down a console with hundreds of games to a selection of just 30, there's always gonna be something missing. Hardware-wise, I have 2 major issues with the console. The first is the cord length. They're so short that it forces you to be sitting right next to the TV, which honestly just isn't very comfortable. Then there's the fact that if you want to change the game, you have to get up and press the reset button on the console. Supposedly, if you have a Wii U controller, you can just hit the home button and it'll take you back to the main menu. But I don't own a Wii U, so I'm out of luck there. But I guess the major question here is the Nintendo Classic Mini worth the price? And honestly, I don't know, it depends. If you're watching this video, you probably already know how to play these games through an emulator. Not only that, but emulators will actually run the games better than the NES Mini, as I occasionally ran into a couple of graphical glitches that were not in the original version, like here, when I reach maximum speed in some of Mario 3's castles. But if you want to play the games on official Nintendo hardware and on a controller that feels just like the real thing, but with a few bells and whistles added like HDMI output and save states, this is a pretty simple way to do it, and it won't cost you much, provided you can actually find it in stores and not on eBay. And besides, this is a cheaper alternative than getting the real thing, especially if you live in Europe like me with the whole NES-A and NES-B thing. Anyway, to me, the best way to enjoy the Nintendo Classic Mini is with a friend. Yeah, you could play Mario or Final Fantasy, and they're all fine games, though Final Fantasy is definitely showing its age. But playing Contra or Bubble Bobble co-op with someone sitting right beside you makes it way more fun. But the real enjoyment comes from playing Balloon Fight and Mario Bros. 2-player and discovering all the new creative ways you can screw over your friends. Suddenly, it's not a game about reaching the final level or racking up points. You're in a death match with your friend, and the endgame enemies are just extra flavoring. Playing Mario Bros. With my older brother was easily the best multiplayer experience I've had all year. We kept finding new and creative ways to kill each other, and we rarely made it past level 3 because of this. It's just a shame that the selection of games isn't really all that two-player friendly. Sure, you have games like Balloon Fight, Bubble Bobble, Mario Brothers, and they even added in Double Dragon 2 instead of the first one because the sequel had co-op. But then you get to games like Mario, where you take turns playing, and that's just not very fun. And when you're playing by yourself, this is a good way to test your skills on your old childhood games and see how rusty you are. I scored 400,000 points on my first playthrough of Super Mario Bros. How much did you score? Hey everyone, thank you for watching St1ka's Retro Corner. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe for a new video every Thursday. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!